A lot can happen in a week. Some of it good, some of it bad, some of it downright ugly. When faced with intriguing developments in the week's news, we turn to a rotating panel of non-experts to parse the good, the bad, and the ugly of it all. On today's panel, Mary Flood, legal consultant with Andrevet Legal Media and Marketing, and David Branham, professor of political science at the University of Houston downtown. Mary, David, welcome to Houston Matters.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Craig.
Panel, I think it's important in this world of ours to maintain where you can a positive attitude and a light touch, which is why our first topic in the news is that the doomsday clock is now 89 seconds away from midnight, closer than it has ever been. For those unfamiliar, the nonprofit Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists sets the clock each year to indicate how close humanity is to some sort of existential catastrophe. The group has been doing this now for about 80 years. In the early days, it signaled the intensity of the risk of nuclear annihilation. In more recent years, climate change and disruptive technologies like AI have joined nuclear proliferation as potential global existential threats. As NPR's Rachel Treisman reported this week, the scientists decry how, despite unmistakable signs of danger, national leaders and their societies have failed to do what is needed to change course. They note in particular China, Russia, and the United States as countries with the prime responsibility to pull the world back from the brink, unquote. We are 89 seconds to midnight. Smoke 'em if you got 'em. Is this good, bad, or ugly? Mary Flood.
Craig, being closer to annihilation is bad, dear. It's bad.
Really?
It's bad.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Going out on a limb there.
Yeah. But these guys have been alarming us since 1949, and there's already enough bad stuff going on. I don't really need them to say, oh, there's pandemics and storms. And I'm like, duh, guys. Yeah. Last year I learned the word derecho when I was, shortly after I was in a closet with 100-mile-per-hour winds going over my house. And I learned that my generator gives up after 5 days, thanks to Beryl, and that the smoke is still bothering my relatives on the West Coast. And, now the executive branch has basically let a bunch of violent, crazy people back out of prison. And we see that they don't care whether people are healthy or not. And there's an asteroid heading for Earth. And enough. The doomsday guys are saying we're talking to the elected officials, but citizens can do two things. They can talk about it, or they can try to lobby their legislators. So yesterday I called my two senators and said, it's really important to me that you don't put a science-denying guy whose cousin calls him a hypocritical predator ahead of our health care. But I know that you two are going to put Republican Party over the health of the Americans, but I wanted to let you know anyway. I don't think that really is going to help all that much.
You don't think that's going to move the clock back a couple of seconds?
No, I don't. But, I think fear-mongering has become the new black. I think that the president's doing it, obviously, which is one of the reasons that lawn care, there's one guy showing up a lot of houses instead of the usual 3 this week. A friend of mine who works at an emergency place, they normally get about 36 people coming every day. They had, 5 or 6 yesterday. And fear-mongering is big. That's what Fox News is. That's what MSNBC is. I mean, it sells, I guess. And to quote Dr. Peter Venkman from the Ghostbusters, when he was trying to convince the mayor that things were going awry, he said there will be human sacrifices. Dogs and cats will be living together. There will be mass hysteria. Mass hysteria. You know this. I'm so amazed how many men can quote this kind of stuff. Anyway, doomsday, bad too. Bad too.
We use that clip of Bill Murray from Ghostbusters every month as we introduce our veterinarian, Dr. Lori Teller, to field dog and cat care questions.
That's great.
Dogs and cats living together. Yeah. Mass hysteria.
Mass hysteria.
Here's Dr. Teller.
There you go.
Good, bad, or ugly, David Branham?
Well, this is ugly, but I'm sorry, Mary, but every second we get closer to doomsday, every second. But we just don't know when it is. And we don't know that it's 89 seconds away or 1 second away or 89 years or 89,000 years. We just don't know. The bad things that they're pointing out are things that we need to be concerned about. I mean, you're talking about the three countries, China, Russia, and the United States. It seems that the strategy of the people in those countries is to have leaders high in testosterone and sticking out their chest, and now just about every one of them are talking about taking over other countries and so forth. So these are things that we need to be concerned about. Now, I do believe the only way to stand up to a bully or to handle a bully is to stand up to him. So maybe that's the best strategy, but we just don't know how this is going to come out. On top of the fact that these countries have incredible technology and weaponry. I mean, Putin is so proud of his hypersonic missiles that just travel at such high speeds. It's hard to believe. But
you're really cheering me up here, David.
But the other thing is that we're more resilient than we ever were before. I mean, I know the global warming is an issue. Greenland, you go to Greenland, you see icebergs falling off of mountains the size of the Empire State Building. It's warming very quickly, and people are worried. But I think that we, as a human race, are going to figure out a way to pull through it. I think we, as a human race, are going to rationally move forward when it comes to weapons and so forth. So I think, yes, the signs are that we're in really bad shape, that we're endangering ourselves, but the signs are also that we're very resilient and we're going to be able to figure out a way to get through it.
Well, rational thinking requires education, and that takes us to our next topic. Let's see how things are going. Panel, the results are in for the nationwide academic progress test known as the Nation's Report Card. And as Houston Public Media's Colleen de Guzman reported Wednesday, Houston ISD students showed slight growth compared to 2022, but still trail behind pre-pandemic scores. The exams given every 2 years to 4th and 8th graders and tests math and reading skills. HISD students are closing in on the scores seen before the pandemic, but still trail average scores for all of Texas. Those statewide scores, meanwhile, have also not yet returned to pre-pandemic levels. HISD Superintendent Mike Miles, who the TEA appointed in 2023 amid a state takeover prompted by one district school's repeated failing academic ratings, celebrated the district's results, characterizing it as proof that HISD has, quote, reversed a downward slope. Houston ISD students see some academic progress from 2022, but like the rest of Texas, still trail scores their predecessors got before the pandemic began. Is this good, bad, or ugly, David?
I think it's good, and I think it's good for the entire state. I think we're turning around. There's no way we're going to get back to pre-pandemic levels at this quickly. It's impossible. You can't have children taking a half a year off of school, some of them more than that, and ever catch up. It's going. I was sitting there watching my children go through high school and basically skipping a half a year, and I'm thinking, how are they going to have the same education as people who didn't do this? So catching up is going to be difficult. Yeah, they're not at pre-pandemic levels. I don't think they will. As far as HISD and Mike Miles, I've been a critic of him since he got in, but on this particular set of test scores, I'm not going to criticize him. I think it's fine where you are. I think you have to give everybody 3 years, no matter who they are, in an organization. And he's in really, these test scores are reflecting his first year. So let's go on and see if this turnaround continues. I know there's a lot of people who think that test scores aren't what we should be measuring academic performance with, but this is what the state has. This is what Mike Miles's criteria are. So let's see if he can meet this and go forward with this, get our children in HISD to a higher level, see if the state can get all the children to a higher level and go forward. So right now I'll say good, but I'm waiting for the future.
Okay. Good, bad, or ugly, Mary?
David, you're so much more optimistic than me. I may need to spend more time with you because this is not good. My friends are not as optimistic either. But I think it's bad. I think it's bad that HISD is trailing the rest of Texas. It's bad that we aren't further along towards the pandemic. And I think it's bad that Mike Miles is saying this is great. It worries me that he might do another stage show celebrating himself. At the same time these results were reported, the Chronicle reported that only 17% of HISD students 6 years after being out are able to earn a living wage. 17%. And it was interesting, the categories that caused them to be likely to be able to earn. One was that they get a certificate or a license, which makes sense. Another was that if they took algebra in the 8th grade, which doesn't really make sense to me, and I think some math teacher snuck that in. I thought it was very suspicious. I suspect my sister-in-law. And another was if they took IB classes. And those are, of course, international baccalaureate classes that are like college prep and can wind up being counted as college credits. But at the same time, there was a story in the last couple of weeks about how the IB classes are going to stop at 5 schools, including Yates, where it never worked, unfortunately. And that's really sad because that third ward school could almost always use help. But on top of all of this, of all of the ways that we aren't doing as well as we should, the legislature is looking at taking more money away from public schools with the voucher system. And it's just too crummy. I think that the bond, the HISD bond that failed in November, it failed because it was seen as a referendum on miles as opposed to whether people really wanted to support schools. So maybe I'm thinking a doomsday clock on miles might be a good idea.
Okay, well, I disagree, obviously.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when it comes to kids and the success after education, there's so many other factors involved besides the school. And so, you know, I do have an issue with always blaming the school for what happens to the kid. I mean, if you want, for instance, if you want the child to do better, they need to be at school all the time. And attendance is always an issue. If you want a child to do better, it's a lot easier if their parents are educated. Because if their parents aren't educated, it's difficult for those parents to help their kids. It's easier if you have a parent at home and where two parents aren't working and only one parent is working. That makes it easier. It's easier if you have a home with two parents. There's so many things that go on that affect the child's success that I hate. We always blaming the school for the issue, for what's going on, and that's what we do. We always blame the school. We're blaming Mike Miles. We blame the administration before this. We always blame the school. It's sometimes the school is just not enough to get them over the top. There's other things that need to be done.
I agree with all the things you said about what goes into education and whether it sticks and whether it works. We just disagree about Miles, but there you go.
Well, I've been a critic of him quite a bit before. So
Not today, yeah.
Not today.
Finally, panel, I know everything's bigger in Texas. I didn't know that was the case 40,000 years ago. Yes, a massive mammoth skull that dates back that far was unearthed in central Texas last week. As the Cron's Ariana Garcia reported Tuesday, the Texas Through Time Fossil Museum in Hillsboro announced that the skull of a male Columbia mammoth, a distant cousin of the woolly mammoth, was dug up at a sand gravel quarry in Ellis County. Its tusks are estimated at 12 to 13 feet long. A huge, huge mammoth skull is unearthed in central Texas. Is this good, bad, or ugly? Mary?
It's good. It's better than the last two things we talked about. It's questionable, though, that this is the largest because I read about these mammoths and 14 feet have been found.
I didn't say it was the largest. I just said it was huge.
Okay, that's true.
A mammoth, if you will.
It was the biggest in Texas part.
I was just saying everything's bigger in Texas.
Right. I looked that up, and somebody actually asked, is everything really bigger in Texas? I'm thinking, wow, that's just the scariest question I may have ever heard. But yeah, I mean, we've got that colossal shrimp on top of Guidos and on the seawall in Galveston, and there's big Tex, and there are apparently some really big cinnamon buns.
Sam Houston statue.
Yeah, so we got some stuff.
I'm glad that you're finally coming around on this.
Yeah, but
everything is bigger in Texas.
But back to our fun theme of we're all going to die and be less educated when we do. Recent science is showing that instead of the genetic weakness that they thought may have killed the mammals, that it may have been things like disease and storms, like pandemics and storms.
I have good news for you on this front.
Yes.
This should make you feel much better. There is visible evidence. This is one of the fun facts about Columbian mammoths that I looked up. There is visible evidence on bones that we have found that, in fact, these animals were hunted by humans. So, see, it may not have necessarily been any of those things. It could have been us.
Yeah. Oh, that is great
Isn't that
news.
better news?
As opposed to what I read was that they probably lost the places to graze. And I'm thinking, okay, if this is going to happen to us, you know, what would be endangered? And I'm thinking, Whataburger and Buc-ee's probably would be what would really show. And you know, Whataburger has just been bought by somebody
now,
out of state.
Now this is bumming me out.
It's getting personal.
Well, somebody out of state. We don't know what's going to happen to the patty melt. And Buc-ee's, I was told by a friend who regularly goes to the one in Katy that the bakery is closed for a while. And he, being a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, said, I don't believe it's renovations. It's something more sinister.
Oh, boy.
So, you know, I think the lesson may be that they should take this tusk, sell it at fossils.com or wherever, and get a whole lot of beaver nuggets.
Well,
They still can.
I do know that when they closed the one over on 290 by Waller, and they walled it off, and they said they're undergoing renovations, that they took off the beef burrito. They took it out and said, we're not serving it as long as we're doing this. So I want to know what the conspiracy is, because this has to stop.
Well, he's upset about not getting a breakfast sandwich at 3 o'clock.
Oh, yeah, I understand.
Okay. Back to Columbian mammoths.
This is about mammoths.
Good, bad, or ugly, David?
Oh, well, this is good. I mean, we had at least we confirmed everything is bigger in Texas. So, and then when they dig up this woolly mammoth, we're going to have our own Grand Canyon. So we'll have another tourist attraction.
So you just mean the giant hole that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you
The
seen a
bones
picture of the
were in?
hole? Yeah.
It's huge, right? So, no, well, this will be an educational gold mine, in all honesty. So, I think everybody's happy. I wish my uncle was alive to see it. My uncle should have been an archaeologist. He should have been Harrison Ford and himself digging things up. And so this is good news. And, I think, it's going to be interesting to see what they find, what the scientists are able to find from this.
Want some more fun facts about Columbian mammoths?
Yes.
Oh, please, Craig, please.
Okay, first of all, they were larger than woolly mammoths. We all think of the woolly mammoth.
But had less hair, I'll bet.
Yes. They lived during the Pleistocene epoch, which lasted from 2.6 million to 11,700 years ago. They really only became extinct a little over 10,000 years ago.
Whoa.
They had thick fur. They had body fat that helped them adapt to the Ice Age. They crossed the Bering Land Bridge into North America about 1.5 million years ago, and then lived in what is today the southern U.S., Mexico, and Central America. And they were closely related to Asian elephants.
Do you have like a chart or some pictures to go with your book report here?
I do.
Oh, you do?
I encourage you to check out my TED Talk.
That was awesome, I have to say.
That was adorable.
Mary Flood is a legal consultant with Androvet Legal Media and Marketing. David Branham is a professor of political science at the University of Houston downtown. Mary, David, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Craig.